Good morning, everyone. Let me start with a little fun fact. Today, I am 64. Well, not exactly. I'm not even 60 yet. But you know how we love to say, Nigeria has happened to me. And I dare say that very proudly. But not in the negative way people often mean it. For me, it means I'm a very proud beneficiary of the hard-fought legacies of our heroes past. I mean, you see, my roots trace back to the southeast, the very region that was at the heart of Nigeria's devastating civil war. But I was born in Lagos in the southwest, and of course, so lived in different parts of this great country. And to top it all off, I'm married to a wonderful man from Kwara State in the northern part of the country. Now, that makes me a true Nigerian. Beautiful blend of cultures and experiences from across our nation. Now, and yes, of course, Nigeria has truly happened to me in the best possible way. Take free education, for instance. Many of us were fortunate to enjoy it. And if you grew up in Lagos like I did, the name Jakonde will likely be etched in your hearts forever. And it's not just in education, where our heroes have left their mark. In fact, every sector has experienced significant milestones, especially in recent decades. Yes, we have faced challenges, no doubt. But our resilience as Nigerians, thriving in the face of adversities, is something to celebrate. So, here we are, celebrating Nigeria at 64. We've weathered storms, faced trials, but here we stand stronger together. So, let's rise and salute the nation as we celebrate how far we've come. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurrasak. Welcome. All right, let me share something. I was actually waiting for the montage to come, but let me share something special about my attire today. I'm proudly wearing the Unity fabric designed by one of the talented women in the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu's Unity Fabric Competition. Now, this beautiful fabric reflects our collective heritage and aspirations, and it's part of the present administration's efforts to promote entrepreneurship among women while also fostering peace and unity across the nation. And it's not just me. You'll see all our presenters wearing the stunning attire throughout the day, including, of course, my colleague Fiso. Come out here. Wow! Wow!
Well, as a proud Yoruba man,
wow,
and your in-law, I have to, be well attired. Thank you so very much.
Well, let me ask you. I didn't realize how fashionable you are. Did you get some tips on the design?
Oh, well, let me just share a little story with you. On the way, I met some Nigerians who were asking me, where is it happening after the program? I said, well, it's happening all over the country. 64 years ago, the Union Jack was lowered, the green, white, green was hoisted. And that has been a journey, an incredible journey of hills and valleys, challenges and triumphs. But in all this milieu, it has been our own story. Nigeria has forged its own path, trudged its own lane.
Absolutely.
And today we are standing together. Yet, yes, some rickety positions on the way, mistakes we've made by ourselves, corrections we've made by ourselves. As you have clearly alluded to, your journey epitomizes the journey of a Nigerian, clearly standing together. And at this time where, yes, we continue to face, one or two challenges, the resilience of the Nigerian continues to show through.
Precisely, Fisayo. And indeed, we have come a long way. And that reminds me of a popular, musician in those days. I think we were 25 then. And, he gave us that very popular music. Can you remember it? Nigeria, today we are going to say, Nigeria is 64.
So you are remixing it. So,
I'm remixing it, yes.
So let's just perhaps, give an inkling to what the Nigerian Television Authority, perhaps the only station that has been there with Nigeria, pre-independence to independence, covering every step of the way, the trials and triumphs, the challenges, the curves, the different uniforms at the top seat, and all the experiences we have had, which have, in a way, coalesced to make us who we are today. But at the same time, we have reached a junction where clear decisions have to be made in terms of the destination of state. And that's what we are doing
You
today.
talk as if you were there 64 years ago. Anyway, let me remind you that the theme for today's celebration is reflecting the past and, of course, inspiring our future. At this point, let me call for a short report on, the resilience and, of course, remarkable journey that Nigeria, has been through.
Federal government's dry land management and environmental sustainability efforts in the wake of the effects of climate change is impacting on states and communities ravaged. President Bola Tinubu's initiative of planting trees while restoring 4 million hectares of degraded land by 2030 with focus on the 19 northern states and the FCT is a deliberate step taken to mitigate the impact of climate change on the Nigeria's ecosystem.
We are rolling out our forestry and afforestation policies, programs, and projects. And like I'm sure you know, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu initiative in greening. So we are planting trees under that initiative.
About 1.7 million trees already have been planted across these states through various activities including shelter belts, woodlots, and agro-afforestation. Over 69,000 hectares of degraded land has been recovered through afforestation, rehabilitation, gully and flood control projects, directly benefiting 59,871 farmers, 15,624 headers, 5,358 fishermen, and 515,969 indirect beneficiaries. The ongoing rehabilitation of 21 kilometers Federal College of Education Technical Gully Erosion Corridor in Gombe State speaks to the efforts the Tinubu administration is making for a sustainable and resilient environment. This intervention has positively impacted the lives of the people, directly protecting over 720 households from imminent destruction and 8,640 people from hazards associated with gully-like diseases and flooding.
In the last 1 year, I can tell you that the Federal Ministry of Environment has implemented not less than 26 high-impact projects to mitigate the effect of flood across several locations in Nigeria, across the states in Nigeria.
This project addresses inadequate drainage systems which have led to death and loss of livelihoods. The federal government intervention aims to manage flooding, protect lives and properties, as well as improve economic opportunities. In the last 1 year, the support to the Yankari Game Reserve in Bauchi State and Just Wildlife Park has resulted in an improved management of protected areas, revenue generation, and increased tourist visits. Conscious commitment to dry season farming in Kogi, Gombe, Yobe, and other parts of the country, leveraging dams like the Dadinkowa Dam and the Nguru wetlands, has improved all year-round farming to bring about increased food sufficiency. 500 farmers across 3 micro-watersheds have benefited from this intervention, supporting 100 women in agriculture in Niger State and another 100 poor and vulnerable women from across 25 communities in the state, each beneficiary receiving improved seedlings and other farm inputs.
Now that this intervention has happened, we've seen a lot of improvement across.
Lastly, President Tinubu's sympathy and determination to bring succor and restore hope back to those internally displaced in states ravaged by flood was the reason why he visited Borno, where he announced a disaster relief fund to assist those impacted. If there is anything, the last 1 year of the present administration under review has seen deliberate steps taken in an attempt to inspire a sustainable and resilient future for all as it marks Nigeria's 64th independence. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
All right, that was our first report today, and it's on President Bola resilience and environmentally sustainable interventions. So today we're not only honoring the legacies of those who laid the foundation for our progress, but we're also sparking conversations about the boundless future ahead of us. And with the theme, reflecting our past, inspiring the future, today's commemoration is an invitation to reflect on our stories of resilience, unity, and vision that have shaped Nigeria into what it is today. But more importantly, we'll be hearing from our distinguished guests about the challenges that lie ahead and our individual and collective roles in steering the course of our nation's destiny. All right, so it's now time to introduce and welcome our esteemed guests who will help us explore the important conversations. And please, if your hands aren't too busy, you can just put them together as we introduce them. Fisayo.
Yes. Well, we talk about reflecting not only the past and inspiring the future, and I think both are well represented in the panel today. A name that is synonymous with Nigeria's struggle is right here. Nsola Abiola, thank you very much for being here, and you are equally well attired today. You are dressing correctly. We'll talk about that, in the course of the program. And let me also welcome Ambassador Dauda Danladi, former High Commissioner to Pakistan. You've represented this country creditably well. Thank you very much for honoring the call.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Let me start from
Just add that Rensola, of course, is the presidential age. He's an special...
Senior Special Assistant to the President.
Yes, to the President. So, and of course, a youth member of a political party. So she's an active political party member.
All right, let's start from you, Ambassador. Not necessarily in the past, but in terms of that Nigeria that started 64 years ago and its outlook to the continent and to the global stage. What was its intention? Because we remember that iconic speech by Tafawa Balewa and what it meant in terms of having friends across the continent and protecting the African interest. Give us an idea for somebody who has, perhaps, represented the interests of the country abroad. What did that mean in terms of the country coming into the stage and just not like that, forcefully?
Thank you very much. I wish we can have that time and space to go, but I will give you synopsis of Nigeria's evolution in terms of its foreign policy from the 60s right down to the present date. In the 60s, you see, Nigeria's foreign policy was shaped by its geography, the location of Nigeria, by its demography, the population of Nigeria, by its natural resources, and of course, by its political landscape, which means that Nigeria was a force in West Africa region as well as the African continent. And quickly, during the times of great men like the Zik and the Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa, the principles was one, African unity and independence. African countries that are under the yoke of colonialism must be liberated. Again, the second principle was peaceful settlement of disputes as African countries was evolving, and of course the promotion and acquiring the capabilities to exercise some hegemonic influence within the region and the African continent. And finally, the promotion of economic cooperation and development. And I think Nigeria in the 60s, right through to the 70s, have demonstrated that capacity. Nigeria was a frontline country in the fight against the apartheid regime. Nigeria contributed immensely to the liberation of Southern African countries. I'm talking about South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Angola. They were liberated. Nigeria contributed immensely in restoring peace in the Republic of Congo following the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. Now, in summary, Nigeria spent about 61 billion US dollars to ensure the liberation of Southern Africa and to usher in the much needed peace and stability. And this policy of Africa being the centerpiece of Nigeria's policy was equally carried forward right to the 80s. And in the 80s, Nigeria liberated and restored peace in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and it costed Nigeria about 8 to 13 billion US dollars. We lost about 500 soldiers to restore peace in the West African region. And that is why Nigeria was called the giant of Africa. And I still believe that Nigeria is still giant of Africa. Fast forward to the 1999 Constitution, where our foreign policy was modified. That look, it should be the protection and promotion of the national interest, the promotion of the integration of the African countries, respect for international laws, building mutual trust, and the elimination of all forms of discrimination, and of course, ensuring a just world economic order. And I think in that regard, successive governments from the 80s have done tremendously well. If you go back to Obasanjo's era, based on this principle, Obasanjo was able to re-establish Nigeria at the international scene because Nigeria became a pariah state as a result of long, prolonged military rule. And Obasanjo made over 113 trips, if I could remember, to various countries in order to reposition Nigeria, in order to re-establish that, in quotes, Nigeria being the giant of Africa.
And that foreign policy, Excellency, has survived decades, and probably why, you know, some people are now saying probably we need to rejig it and then move away from being the centerpiece of Africa. But I would have loved for us to have started with a little review of the president's broadcast. Maybe when we come back, we will do that, and then we will, you know, delve deeper into the foreign policy and all that. But first, let's listen to this report again. I think it's on building resilience through environmental sustainability initiatives to mitigate the effects of climate change on lives and livelihoods, particularly those in vulnerable communities in Nigeria. Yes, you know, that was the one that we just took right before we delved into our conversation.
But we maybe she can, you know, just interject just a little bit so that, you know, I just wanted that attire to speak to some issues. Very quickly, the ambassador said some things, you know, about our, you know, foreign policy and Nigeria standing on the continent and, of course, in the world and our outlook. You belong to a generation, you know, perhaps now that has inherited some of the, you know, the albatross of expectation from the citizens based on this, you know, potential and, of course, the standing of a giant. You personally have lived a life of sacrifice and struggle in terms of, you know, what your name stands for. But today, how are you seeing yourself? First as a youth and a participant, just like Claire alluded to, a party member, a participant in the Nigerian cause, you know, to securing its future, especially in this administration?
So I would say that, as the President rightly noted in his Independence Day address, there are lots of things that we've gotten right as a country since we gained independence. And it's very important that we focus on what we're doing right and how far we've come and the successes that we've recorded. And, you know, as opposed to just dwelling in the negativity of what is yet to be done or what we still need to work on. And that's a message that I would like to reiterate, especially for young people. For me, The entire point of political participation is to contribute our quota to national development. And young people, older people, men, women, children, we all have a part to play in nation building. So that's what informed my decision to join politics, despite the varying obvious history and how that might be limiting for other people in my shoes. But I believe the fact that my father's political inclusion, had tragic consequences should then not shut the door to political participation for people like me and others who perhaps have lost quite a lot to Nigeria's struggle, especially for democracy at the time that we did. And then we have an example in people like our president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who also gave so much to the fight for democracy at the time and is now at the helm of affairs today. So it is a pointer to the fact that, as has been said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and we cannot afford to take a backseat in the affairs of our country as young people. We have to understand that Nigeria belongs to us, and what becomes of this country in future will be the sum total of the decisions that we make today and the contributions that we make today as young people. And it's actually been a thing of pride for me listening to His Excellency give a recap of our foreign policy, especially when this country was formed and the many interventions. These are things that I was aware of, but when he mentioned that we lost over 500 soldiers to restoring peace in the West African region, it is a thing of pride. It is something that should give any Nigerian anywhere, a lot of pride, and also make us further appreciate the sacrifice of our armed forces and how much they've done with keeping this country together. And I would like to link that to the current onslaught against non-state actors, especially those operating as bandits and terrorists in different parts of the country, and how hard the military is working now to bring that situation under control. So as a young person, I am proud of this country. As a young person, I would like to encourage other young people to contribute their quota to national development and to support our leaders and to also engage the system and contribute what they can to developing our communities in their respective spaces.
All right, we'll come back to, what you've just spoken to, and I would, pick you up on some of the, things you have spoken about. But let's, Claire has said something about the president's address. So just let's take the address, the key points, and then speak to some of those things.
Actually, we once it's ready, we will play it. But I would have loved us to, look at some of the high points in today's, address, and then review it from your perspective. And again, I don't want to start with His Excellency, the Ambassador. Let me start with Rensola. Okay. You're quite young, though, but not too young, not to, of course, know some of those resilient, things that have shaped our country. What do you make of Mr. President's speech, for instance? What are the high points for you?
Incidentally, before the program started, I was commenting about it on social media. And for me, as always, the high point is the fact that Mr. President is very, very committed to the cause of young people. He mentioned, again, key youth initiatives like the National Education Loan Fund, popularly called the student loans, which is supposed to help remove barriers to higher education for young people. And we all know how important it is that our young people are able to access education. In the long run, in addition to, of course, improving the revenue for our tertiary institutions, in the long run, that is a policy position that would see to it that the level of poverty is reduced in the long run, because the more education you have, the higher chances of securing better paying job opportunities. And then he also mentioned the issue of security, which is a major concern for a lot of Nigerians at the moment. In recent weeks and months, we've seen very spirited fight against non-state actors in the Northwest and the Northeast. And we're recording a lot of successes on that front. It makes me very proud as a Nigerian every time I see updates about, yet another victory recorded by officers of the Nigerian Armed Forces. He also mentioned the issue of economic growth, the fact that we're retooling the economy, trying to set right things that have perhaps not been done right over time and that have brought us to this current position. And he talked about the cost of living crisis and the steps being made to address that, to also bring about self-sufficiency in food production. He rightfully commended governors of states that have keyed into that particular initiative and, encourage others to come on board as well. And, the Minister for Finance was speaking a few days ago, and one of the things that was reiterated was the need to attain self-sufficiency when it comes to things like food production and agriculture. So we see that steps are being made to address these issues. And in fixing issues of this nature, we need solutions that are more than just being cosmetic, and that is what this administration is aiming to deliver on. A total overhaul of the system, and to see to it that beyond just seasonal changes and beyond just quick fixes, we have solutions that actually last and that address the cause of the current situation from its roots. And in that regard, we should actually give due commendation to the administration for how far they're willing to go and how much they're willing to do to address the issue of the cost of living and food production. And then a very important issue for me is the youth confab that was mentioned. Nigeria's young people make up the bulk of our population. It's between 65 to 70%, depending on where you're taking your statistics from. And again, Mr. President has shown that just beyond having initiatives aimed at young people, like the 3 Million Technical Talents Program, the Student Loan Fund, the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, and so many others, the Nigerian Youth Academy, there's also a need to hear from young people and let young people propose solutions to our challenges as a country. So
okay,
that's a very key
let's put you on hold for a moment.
Yes,
Ambassador Danladi, I'm just, because right now a lot of Nigerians, would say, okay, this is October, 1st, and things are still hard. But that was the first thing Mr. President touched on, about the hardship Nigerians are facing. Do you think it resonated with the people?
Yeah, I think it should. And I think what the president has said can be captured within the 4 doctrines of his foreign policy. He talks about the 4 Ds: democracy, deepening democracy. And as you know, we had a lot of challenges, especially within the West African region, where there was unconstitutional change of government in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and these are tied with the ability of democrats to deliver the dividend of democracy, the welfare of the citizens, employment opportunities, addressing the sustainable development goals, ending poverty, ending hunger. And I think the president's speech really elucidates on the strategies that this government will take or is taking to address these challenges that most African countries are facing towards deepening of democracy. The other D is the issue of demography. Nigeria's population of about 200 million people, and I'm so glad that we have a vibrant young lady here in the office of the President as Special Advisor, and she has spoken extensively on the issue of youth.
Let me quickly just read out,
yes,
the President's exact speech, and that was in fact the first paragraph. And he said, I am deeply aware of the struggles many of you face in these challenging times. Our administration knows that many of you struggle with rising living costs and the search for meaningful employment. I want to assure you that your voices are heard. What do you think Nigerians should be saying?
Of course, he is a listening president. He was a listening president, and that's why the situation in the ECOWAS region did not escalate. It could have led to a disastrous humanitarian crisis.
He's a listening president.
Yes, he's a listening president. And I think this issue of utilizing, leveraging on the vibrant youth population that we have in this country, to me, it's one of his greatest priority. Because if you can leverage on our youth, provide them with the required education, with the required skills, they can and they will contribute to Nigeria's development. Let me just quickly say this, that do you know that today we have about 12,000 Nigerian doctors working in the United States? Do you know that out of the 3.4 million Nigerians living in the United States, 4,000 of them are medical doctors? Do you know that Nigerians in the diaspora are contributing, remitting close to about $20 billion US? If you can energize, mobilize the youth of this country with the required skills, it can be a great asset that can change the fortune of this country. And I think so, Mr. President is on track, and he has set the pace. When you talk about the other issues, like, for example, the issue of development, development is a very few terms.
But are there relatable actions that depict that Mr. President is listening to the cries of
Yeah, I think so. Mr. President is listening to this. And Mr. President is not only listening, but he's even setting the pace. Look, within just a span of 1.5 years that he was in office, he has been able to attract over $30 billion into this country on investment. When this investment begins to mature, of course, you will see the tangentials that will promote development in this country.
Talking about maturity.
Yes.
And, some will say gestation period.
Yes.
You have the Ministry of Livestock and all that, they will understand that term. But before this, crude oil thing and all that, we were an agrarian society, relying seriously on agriculture. Somewhere we lost it. Somewhere it became something in the background. I remember that, when we traveled with my dad, across the country, my sisters went to unity schools. You don't need to go to a market to shop. By the roadside, you buy everything home. Somehow, we seem to have lost a vital part of our lives. Yeah. Regenerating this, getting this to work fully, optimizing the opportunities in this sector could be key to getting us back there. Do you believe? And in terms of these, actions, perhaps let me start with Risola. Are you seeing, because we talked of gestation and all that, are we seeing a momentum towards this sector being completely revived so that it will begin to germinate again and those opportunities will begin to see them?
So I would begin by saying that there are several economic models that essentially propose the idea that as a country develops, they tend to move away from subsistence agriculture, to be specific. So somehow, in some way, the movement towards industrialization is a positive signal for an economy. But at the same time, we need to be able to produce what we consume, because it would also have positive economic effects, especially when it comes to the issue of forex and reducing imports. And what this administration has done, as the President noted during his address, is we're looking at not just improving food production generally, but even looking at like machinery that would assist in producing food on an industrial scale. And he mentioned the plans that is being set up to compile heavy agric machinery here in Nigeria. And that's a very strong indicator of how seriously this administration is taking the issue of agriculture. And we're also seeing initiatives that have been put in place to also sell the idea of being active participants in the agriculture value chain to young people. Because again, when those who are already interested, when they move on or when for some reason they're not able to participate anymore, we need young people being able and willing to step into their shoes and also practice agriculture on that industrial scale. So what we need is to be able to practice agriculture on an industrial level, and that is what this administration is working towards. So yes, certainly there is a commitment, there is a willingness, there is a political will, there is the dedication to actually getting us on that path towards self-sufficiency when it comes to producing what we eat, and also definitely exporting to the rest of the world, because there is a very large value chain, there is a very large market, there is a lot of potential, and this administration is working to tap
Talking
that.
about, value chain and linkages within the industry, if I remember, the former Director General of NOTAP was talking about the valley of death between, the town and the gown. You have the research and all that, and then you have the industry, and there seems to be no marriage over time, to the point that we have, commercializable projects on our shelves, especially in the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, just there gathering dust. Then on this other side, you have industries who patronize other projects from abroad, and then there's no linkage somewhere there. So in that valley of death, it seems to me that that is where our youth are waiting, to see if there's a marriage, and then these potentials can really come up. And I, like, especially in specific terms, what you have talked about in terms of disassemblage and all that. And then, of course, in science and technology, we still have so many areas that we have seem to me to be untapped. For instance, the National Space Research and Development Agencies, NASDA, launched so many programs on land use, land cover, looking at, all kinds of satellite imagery to know even where you plant crops and all that. We have all that in Nigeria, but it seems to me as if there's no, marriage between some of these research institutes and those who need to use them at the end users. And then, this craze of everything that is Nigerian, we'll put it somewhere, and then we are always looking at something lofty from somewhere else. Let's look at, in specific terms, the leather industry. Our leather goes away from Kano abroad. The people who need the leather are in Aba doing shoes, but they use synthetic leather. And yet we have hides and skin in quantity right here in the north. The linkage seems not to be the ambassador. How do we make this marriage work?
Well, I think the issue of technology comes in here, and the issue of skills comes in. And I think this government, looking at the policies that the government is putting in place, the provision of skills to our youth, the tools, the access to finance, the development of small and medium enterprises, which the president has been hammering on, and of course, the introduction of the blue economy ministry. I think this...
Your Excellency, just I don't know if we can say this split screen now. We have, preparations for the National Day Parade right there at the State House, and that's what you're seeing right now on your screen. Preparation for the National Day Parade getting set on the screen right now. And of course, let's continue with that conversation. One thing that, many economists have always talked about is the need for a match between fiscal and monetary policies. And then, some of the managers of our monetary policies have also identified that as a gap, in economic reforms. But it's an important part of the president's speech this morning, reforms, especially misalignment. That's the word, Mr. President, fiscal misalignment, And this has been the bane of, previous governments. What are your views about that?
I think the president has also provided a platform. This youth conference that has been scheduled to take place within the next, I think, 30 days. I think will bring in the youth, will bring in possibly industrialists, will bring in stakeholders, various stakeholders that will sit down and discuss, hold frank conversations, marshal out some of the gray areas, and perhaps proffer solutions that could accelerate the synergy that is required in order for the Nigerian youth to actively participate and for us to really use the potential that we have in this country towards repositioning Nigeria. When you talk about agriculture, we have about 79 million hectares of arable land in this country, and only about 30% that is used. When you talk about mechanization, we have about just not more than 40,000 tractors in this country. In comparison to Pakistan, one province has about 500,000 tractors, all right? And I see the president's effort in winning investors, especially in the area of agriculture, all right, that can really domesticate the production of simple tools that could boost our agricultural production in this country. If you go around the country, you find that almost 60% of agricultural production is still we are using the traditional way of, and which is not really sustainable. And the idea that agriculture should be a commercial venture, which this administration is pursuing, I think if well articulated, at the end of the day, I think we will achieve the desired.
The headline inflation, as released by the NBS, was brought down by the food items. But where you're core inflation was driven by energy costs, you know, and all that. And this is one, you know, big area that the president is trying to address. Can you speak to us about that?
So the issue of energy generation is quite a technical one. But what I would say is that this administration is doing a lot of work to also reduce the costs of transportation for our people. And we understand fully well that it also has a ripple effect on the cost of food items, for instance. Only recently, a promise was fulfilled when CNG-enabled buses were handed over to student unions and labor unions as well. Transportation for workers and for students, for young people. And then we've also seen a lot of work being done by the presidential CNG initiative to convert cars from being able to use gasoline or petrol to CNG, as it's a much cheaper form of energy and for moving around. The challenge, of course, is that a lot of commercial vehicles are benefiting from this, most of them at no cost. And citizens as well are being encouraged to convert their vehicles to lower the cost of transportation. But then again, the challenge is the commensurate, like there are many people who maybe have converted their vehicles, but aren't exactly charging at the reduced rate that is expected. So that's yet another issue, and that's where the issue of citizenship comes in and the right values. Because if you've benefited from an initiative by government to enable you to deliver service at a cheaper rate to citizens, then citizens should be able to benefit from that particular initiative as well. But then some of them continue to charge as though they're operating using petrol, and that's not really making the intended effect.
That's not government's problem now. It becomes our own problem, and that's where our own collective role. But you and I know, Fisai, the price of petrol, you know, right now is also an issue to be addressed when it comes to, you know, reducing core inflation driven by the energy, you know, factor. Ambassador.
Really, I just want to add on what she has just said, that reducing the cost of food items. I think the president has taken a bold decision. He has lifted taxes on the importation of various food items for, I think, about 3 months. Now, our expectation is that our private sector will cash in, they will leverage, make sure that they bring in the necessary grain that's required in this country, especially paddy rice. We have quite good sizable number of rice mills in this country, and if they can be put to use, it will drastically bring down the cost of food items, pending when harvest. We are looking at a bumper harvest this year because the rains were good and because government at all levels have strived to provide the necessary inputs to our farmers.
You seem to be hitting hard on agric.
Yes.
Yes, but even agric is even doing well when you compare it with, you know, its contribution to the GDP. It seems to be, you know, doing well compared to other composite items within that.
You see, let me just quickly add this. The other issue is the issue of industrialization, the issue of manufacturing, our textile industries. We need to revive back our textile industry, and I think the president has a plan in that direction. But let me say this, that manufacturing industrialization is contingent on energy supply. Even though we hold about the capacity of about 60% renewable energy in this country, it is not being utilized. And the Ministry of Innovation, we look forward to the Ministry of Education to come out with robust policies that would promote renewable energies in this country. Solar. In Borno State, I remember some 2 years ago, they installed a factory for the production of solar panels. If we can have our youth trained, skilled to produce solar panels, cheap solar panels, that could bridge the gap of our energy requirement.
I think in that direction,
then of course we'll make some
yes, a white
progress.
paper was presented under, I think, Professor Sambo of the Energy Commission years ago about, you know, how to go about these renewables. It seems we have so many of these concepts already documented. It's just perhaps, you know, bringing them to. Professor Sambo had quite an elaborate submission on, renewables as a viable alternative, to where we are now, the energy mix, and what that could do. If in the long run, maybe capital intensive at the beginning, but on the long run, much cheaper and even more serviceable, especially in some key areas in the country, especially the northern part of the country. And some private initiatives have actually come out to do some in Adamawa State, wind farms and all that, have practicalized some of these things. And we could begin to, put some of these things into operation. Of course, another aspect which you have, touched on is the issue of, the will, even of the Nigerian to say, okay, I'm committed to this project. I want the country to survive, as against just trying to, take what is nice from every project and not particularly committing to them. We have seen so many of these things start. In fact, you see the pilot stage and you see some people making commitments, and after a while, maybe an administration goes, another one comes in, and then that's the end of that project. So and that's, takes me to the next question before we eventually, join the live telecast of, what's happening out there at the State House, is the fact that, you have gone to, other climes and seen how it's done, especially in a country with huge population like Pakistan, and the commitment of government to some of these sectors and how they have been able to sustain, irrespective of whoever comes in. These initiatives continue to, they are rolled over and perhaps sometimes expanded to make sure that the ideas that brought about this concept are seen to the letter. Where have we missed it? This stop start. I drove from Abuja, that was about a year and a half ago, down to Akure, and what I could see was companies left and right with their gates closed, overgrown with weed. It was, I felt, it was almost like a tragedy to me to see companies, all closed up, over the years. It seems as if an initiative starts, people get buying into it. All of a sudden, another administration comes, and that is it.
Well, I think when the president was inaugurated last year, he has made it abundantly clear that this issue of policy somersault will stop. And he has said all the good policies that his predecessor put in place, he will continue with these policies. So I can see a line that has been drawn on the issue of policy somersault. And going forward, I see the maturity of this, the continuum of the previous policies that were pursued by the preceding government. He has consistently said that he will continue with the policies of his predecessors, especially policies that affect the well-being, the welfare of the citizens of this country. And the CNG buses which have been launched, the preceding government midwife the promotion of the CNG. All right? And when you look at the issue of manufacturing, industrialization, which is contingent upon power, this government is giving top priority to the provision of energy in this country. And
Ambassador, please, I'm sorry to interject at this point. We'll just take a short break, join our State House correspondent, Muswa Dan Wahab, who is, I can say, Muswa, good to see you. Happy Independence Day. Muswa, can you hear me?
Happy Independence anniversary to you too.
And we are all adorned, of course, in the unity fabric designed by the First Lady. But just tell us, what's the atmosphere like out there? Muspa, it appears you can't hear me, but I'd just like you to just give us an insight into
Fisayo Ogunfuye, thank you for joining us. The State House, the President has declared that this is going to be all right, thank you, Claire. This is the State House where the parade or change of guard by the Presidential Guard Brigade will be taking place any moment from now. And the President, remember, declared that this is going to be a low-key celebration. But here, in the dictionary of the Nigerian Armed Forces, I think this is just a bit modest for the celebration. 64 years after the independence of the country is not a mean feat, and they are in their own way celebrating it in this form. Already dignitaries, including Nigeria's ministers and all the friends of Nigeria from the diplomatic community are here to also participate in this event. Any moment from now, the President will be coming in where he will be received over there by some selected dignitaries, and then the parade will begin in earnest by the Presidential Gas Brigade.
Distinguished Nigerians, ladies.
On this day, I'm just wondering, Musbah, if there is any unique feature that's accompanying this year's parade. Yes, okay, I think there's, we're having delayed connection. Fisayo, I wish you could also pop in one of your usual questions to
Musbah, but the band behind him perhaps, and there seemed to be a little bit of delay in him, but obviously maybe later on he will come and do a recap for us. And of course, you know, normally in occasions like this, the military too come with their own master of ceremony.
I think we can see that from where I'm watching, that looks like
the Speaker House of Representatives and the Senate President.
And the President of the Senate, yes. Both of them. Oh, see the beautiful attire. Wow.
I can say not as fine as mine.
That's big. But what would you say about Rinsola's beautiful attire?
She's in the spirit.
All right. All right, so let's come back to the our conversation, and still on the economy. While the President was talking, he was particular about the reserve, how the reserve, you know, had grown within 1 year, and we know that when the President took, you know, came into office. Our reserve had, you know, greatly depleted. It was greatly depleted, yes. And is it something for us? It is something that we should celebrate.
Of course, because this is the result of the removal of subsidy. The removal of subsidy created an opportunity to conserve our foreign exchange. Money was being spent subsidizing petroleum products, even though it came with all the pains, but I think the government has put in place various palliatives to cushion the effect of the subsidy. So I think to a large extent that could be the result. And secondly, I think government has also, if you remember, cut public spending. There was restriction on public travel. There was restriction on public spending, and public officers were not. The number of delegations was drastically trimmed. So I think it is fiscal discipline that the president has introduced.
Precisely.
Yes, which to a large extent has contributed to the foreign reserve that we are seeing, despite the hardship.
Yes, and the central bank was emphatic that the monetary policy decisions contributed significantly to growing our reserve, foreign reserve.
Indeed.
Yes, and also a reason why, because a lot of people were asking, why do we need to increase our monetary policy rates and, of course, the CRR?
Just to say that at the moment the vice president has arrived, and I understand by the protocol half of the national anthem will be played to welcome him. That's Vice President Kashim Shettima arriving the venue, and that means that shortly the Commander-in-Chief will also be in attendance. The military take this very seriously. Once the VIPs come in, the national anthem will be played for the Vice President halfway, and then the full one will be played once the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic arrives the venue. So you can see the display there. Those are the colors and of the military, and of course of the Nigerian Army and others, and then of course the display of course the President, I understand, will be arriving now shortly after the Vice President has taken the anthem and then taken his seat, and then of course the program will commence in earnest.
Please be seated. Invited guests, distinguished Nigerians, ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem we just listened to heralded the arrival of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Kashim Shettima, Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger. Your Excellency, you are welcome. I'd like to very humbly and very, very respectfully recognize in our midst the presence of the former presidents and vice presidents of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You are welcome, Your Excellencies. Do I need to? Your Excellencies, invited guests, distinguished Nigerians, ladies and gentlemen, one more time I'd like to very respectfully recognize the chairman of the organizing committee of this epoch-making occasion, and who is also the secretary to the government of the Federation, His Excellency, Dr. George Akume. You're welcome, Your Excellency. I'd like to also very specially recognize in our midst.
All right, you've just heard the introduction of the dignitaries at the parade ground from the State House here in Abuja, and very soon we'll be joining our correspondent, Abdullahi Mustafa, there he is. Abdullahi Mustafa is standing at the Sani Abacha Stadium in Kano, and of course we all know Kano is very strategic. It's the commercial center, and all that. So, Abdullahi, give us a feel of what's happening.
Thank you very much. As you can see in the background, the Independence Anniversary Parade is taking place. It's a joint parade by the military and paramilitary as well as safety agencies, and it's already been reviewed by Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf here at the Sani Abacha Stadium. And already there are other special guests that came, including traditional and religious leaders, as well as members of the business community, politicians, and members of the diplomatic corps. And prior to this time, there were concerns that events like this may not happen. But Kano is peaceful. All places are calm, people are doing their businesses, but all offices are closed. And after the parade, the governor is expected to address the people of Kano as was done 2 days ago at a public lecture to commemorate the 64th independence anniversary. Although he was represented, but there was a strong message of the need for Nigerians and of course Kano people to remain patriotic and join hands with the leadership of the country and the state in addressing the nation's development challenges. And that there were appeals from the governor and other leaders in the state that despite challenges, Nigerians should continue to be patriotic and see Nigeria as their only home. And it is only Nigerians that should take it to the promised land and to the places where they see other countries that are more developed have gone. Because each country is developed by its citizens, and so too Nigeria. So this parade is symbolizing the call being made by the governor and other leaders on the need to be patriotic, to remain committed to the development of the country, to eschew all unwholesome behaviors and characters, especially corruption and indiscipline. And by so doing, they believe all the nation's challenges, economic security and others. So this is the situation here from the Sani Abacha Stadium, where the Independence Day parade is being conducted and being reviewed by the governor of Kano State, Abba Kabir Yusuf.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Abdullahi Mustafa, reporting for us from the Sani Abacha Stadium in Kano. Abdullahi, thank you. Fisaya.
Yes, I can see that it's not just about the Federal Capital Territory today. Other states are also commemorating, this anniversary in different ways. Of course, the parade will be there, and of course, as you can see there, the Sani Abacha Stadium. We expect to see other reports across the country as well, and see how they are doing in terms of the celebration. Very shortly, of course, we'll be back to see what is happening at the State House, and we're already seeing that the dignitaries are seated, and the president, of course, will soon get there. But before, we go back to the State House, Risola, you saw, Nigerians adorned in green, white, green. But what does that symbolize for the younger generation? Do we still, see that green, white, green and have, that spark, that thing, that special spark that you normally have when you see those colors?
I think
especially not the one that has the coat of arms in the middle, because that's not the correct flag.
Yes, that's not. So I think that question is something that you'll answer, say, when we're playing in AFCON or the World Cup and the Nigerian team is playing. I think you can tell how young people feel about the country and about our flag and about Nigeria generally. in the moments that we score goals and at the moment that we win matches. So I would say that the love for country is still very much there. And one thing I've noticed as well is even for those who seem to express their frustrations or aren't happy about it, one thing or the other, for a lot of us, it comes from a place of love. That particular frustration they have with whatever they choose to focus on that is negative comes from a place of love and wanting things to be better.
All right. The president has now arrived. We hand you over to the State House.